People make mistakes all the time. People try things and they fail all the time. It's just doing it. It's okay to fail. It's okay to stumble a little bit, in my opinion, because everyone does, and everyone wants to act as if they don't, or act as if, it's just like I said, it's so easy, but it's just not. It's just not true. We all need the chance to fail and to try new things, I think.
Hey everyone, I'm Amanda Zantal-Wiener, and this is Growth Raps, where we speak to rappers about growth. I'm here today with the gentleman from STL GLD. This is the Arcitype, a.k.a. Arc, and Moe Pope. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
All right, so I really kind of want to kick things off with what, prior to us rolling, you identified Arc as your key marketing flaw, which is the pronunciation of STL GLD.
Yeah, so we often get the question, is it STL GLD? Is it St. Louis Gold? Is it STL GLD? But no, it is just STL GLD.
STL GLD,
yeah.
Okay. And
it's a reference from The Outsiders.
It's like, Pony Boy stay gold. Well, we did, and thus we're still gold.
So we recently had the Boston Music Awards, and you all took home a few pieces of gold. Congratulations.
We did, thank you.
And this is becoming an annual tradition for you all, is taking home some Boston Music Awards.
I mean, the last 2 years, yeah, it's been good for us, We had last year with the Album of the Year, with Torch Song, and then this year with the Live Artist of the Year. I think, for us, it means a lot because it's like the two things that we focused on, like sort of intently in each year. Obviously, Torch Song was the focus for that year, and we poured all our energy into that album. And then, this last year we didn't put out an album, and we really just focused on kind of making our live show as just honed in on trying to make it as much of an experience as we possibly could. So it's rewarding to see those things kind of recognized by the city.
Yeah, for me, I just like a good party. So
yeah, that it is.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
Well, your live performance at the Oberon with the orchestra, I had the privilege of attending that. It was a privilege for anybody who was in attendance, and it was a party as well. And I thought that was a very interesting collaboration that we don't see much of. We've seen a little bit of it in the Midwest. The Minneapolis Orchestra has partnered with Dessa and some folks out there. What led to that partnership?
It's just something that I've always loved. I think I saw a pretty young Portishead play with the Philharmonic, and to me it was just like an unbelievable thing, this kind of dirty, grungy music paired with something that's supposed to be so polished, and yeah, so I saw that, and it's something that I always wanted to do with hip hop. I know that it's done fairly rarely, so yeah, I just always wanted to do it. So we were like, we got to make our own destiny and make it happen.
And is that something that you see a lot of on the local level? And I do kind of want to get into the idea of growth, if you will, on the local level, where you have these partnerships that are a little bit more crucial to, amplification of your name and things like that. Is that something that you think happens more on sort of this micro level?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I think that when you're first starting out, obviously the funds aren't really typically there to be able to execute everything you could possibly want, the way you want it, without asking for some favors, you know what I mean? So you sort of are relying on your immediate network to kind of come in and help boost you up a little bit. And everything starts locally. I mean, the biggest artist in the world was a local artist at one point, and still is a local artist to one particular area. So I think, yeah, the idea is in the beginning, I think it's really crucial to kind of get the support from people in all different sort of aspects. And for us, that's been something that's been huge, is every time we work on a new album or something, there's there's always like this network of people that are eager to lend a hand, you know, whether it be shooting a video or taking some photos or whatever we need to sort of make the image or look or feel of what it is we're doing. You know, a lot of people are on board to help out with that, you know what I mean? So
I mean, the community banding around different art forms is something beautiful. I don't think it's anything central to this area. Most city areas have some type of community that has banded together for art and taken different funds or whatever and allocated it towards the betterment of an art project or something for the sake of art, you know. So I'm gonna keep seeking help from the community as much as I can, you know.
I think the strongest art communities also come out of collaboration, like cross media.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So it's not just musicians working with musicians, it's musicians working with visual artists of all formats and mediums, and then that's what creates just these cool collaborations that otherwise wouldn't exist, you know. So
Yeah, I think it's that idea of community that where you see the most successful local cultural scenes or art scenes. It is that idea of reaching beyond the music, if you will, to, you know, a local donut shop, if you will, and things like that for co-branding and things like that. So, you know, what do you think that growth looks like in that way when you kind of keep it on that micro level? What does growth look like for you and for everybody else who's a member of this really awesome creative family?
I mean, I think for me, at least in this side of things, you mentioned the donut shop, and that's a great example of sort of like something that otherwise, you know, we really just, we made a song called Donut Shop, and we needed to shoot a cover, you know, create some sort of cover art for the single, and as opposed to just buying donuts and shooting it and making our own cover, to partner up with a local donut shop to do that whole thing with as like a function, serviced it so much more. And it was a little place that didn't have to have, like, a collaboration didn't have to happen in order to achieve the ultimate goal, but through the collaboration, like something cool and innovative and, well, innovative, I label it as such, but like, you know, something different came out of that experience than otherwise would have happened had we not, like, you know, and we have a connection there, and there's a cool bond between us and them that comes up all the time, like right now, you know. I think on that level, that kind of stuff is super not only integral to growth in the beginning, but also just like exciting. It's fun to think about, like, all right, well, here's what we want to do, and, you know, we could try to execute a lot of these things ourselves, but like, who can we bring in to kind of like maybe help boost it up a little bit more? And like, for us, it gives us maybe a slightly larger platform in an area that was otherwise just artwork for a single. You know, we have a donut shop now supporting it, you know, a popular one at that. And then also for the donut shop, it's like something that they never get asked to do. You know, it's, how many hip hop groups have come to them saying, hey, we want to partner with you on this hip hop single and do a co-branding. I'm sure they don't get that too much. I don't know.
I mean, it's also the fact that when you have like a local scene or whatever, there's not much infrastructure for the music scene here. You know, there's not much you can do. There's not many venues. There are no record labels here, really. There's no, you know, there is what there is. So in order to be creative, in order to do something different, you really got to think outside of the box, especially if there are so many artists and so many different people out there trying to get noticed within their art form or whatever. So yeah, we're just trying to keep people on their toes, just like they're trying to keep us on our toes.
Yeah, because that's the other thing. It's like this particular region at the moment is just full of so much talent that it's like, you know, if it's just based on like whose song came out that's like better than the next song, it's kind of like, man, I don't know. It's a hard battle.
And it's like,
So, you know.
if there are only few venues, you gotta, like I said, you gotta be creative. Like,
Down to where
you
you're
can't-
playing and
You're
how
playing
you're
in different places. You're playing with different, like we played with the orchestra. You gotta learn how to switch it up and change it up in order to give people something different that they might not be able to see. You know.
There's something that you said just now that really stood out to me, Mo, about how in this area there isn't really a huge market, if you will, for the type of work that you do. And I think that that's something that a lot of small to mid-sized businesses, people who are just starting out, they struggle with a lot. And I don't want to put words in your mouths, but it sounds like that's one of the best things you can do if you are in that position and you feel like there isn't really much of a market where you are, and you're asking yourself these questions of, should I stay here? Should I go? Should I do something else? What is the best advice that you can give, given your experience, to somebody who's in that position, wherever they are and whatever they do?
I think just that, like, try to be creative. Like, there's plenty of ways to do things outside of the box, and plenty of ways to try something different that maybe somebody else that might be in your same field isn't doing. You just got to find that thing, you know? Maybe we have something else that we're supposed to be doing along with this music thing. We haven't found it yet. But if any band I think that's going to find it, I do believe it's going to be ours, you know? Although there isn't a huge market out here, there is so much talent and so many smart people that there are ways to make something cool nowadays that you possibly couldn't have maybe 10 years ago, you know, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think trying to think outside the box really comes down to it. It's like, you know, because in any particular area, I think there is a market for something, right? And so it's trying to align yourself with whatever there might be a market for. And so, you know, like, you know, I mean, Union Square Donuts is doing great out here. They don't need any help on that side of things. But if they weren't, or if a new donut shop came up and was like, man, we just can't seem to crack this market because Union Square Donuts and Blackbird and all these guys got it cornered, and Dunkin's on every corner. You know, I think that, you know, they might have to say, okay, well, you know, have we thought about partnerships, strategic partnerships that none of those donut shops have done before? And maybe a hardcore metal scene with donuts in it is like the thing. The donut shop needs to put on metal shows, and that'll save their business.
Right.
Oversaturation is another thing. It's like, if, you know, and I think that's what we face the challenge of in our city is like we mentioned, the talent level is so high here that it's like, that's not enough. Like, just to be good is not enough. So we have to figure out, okay, how do we be good and separate ourselves from the pack? Because if it's just about being good, they've already got that. Yeah. So for us, it's okay, how do we be good and approach it? If everyone's taking it this way, we try our best to come around and hit them from a different angle and just sort of see the same thing from a different light, you know. And I think that if, you know, I mean, it takes a while and it's exhausting, and, you know, but I think it's paid off somewhat for us thus far. So
I think that idea of shuffling your priorities each year and kind of switching them back and forth is really interesting, focusing one year on the work that you produce and one year on the way you perform it. Mm-hmm. How has that helped?
I think for us, the most obvious thing was that it gave, in this era, which is like a fast moving, like timelines are, you know, we got 15 seconds on Instagram stories and all that, you know, and everyone's like on to the next thing. It gave us a year and a half of burn on an album, like, which is like hard to do on an indie level at this point. You know, everyone's like, you need to put out your music out every 6 months. You know, and we're approaching now the 2-year mark of that album, and a lot of people are like, but that just came out last year, you know. And I think that, like, for us, like, taking that project and saying, okay, now how can we bring this project to life in interesting and unique ways that are different, and, you know, every time you see it, kind of keeps the life of it exciting and new, so that it just, like, it gave us a lot more time to work on new music and not have to worry and stress about putting the next thing out. And so, I don't know, I think that...
Absolutely. And we've tried to not do the same shows over and over again. We try to change things up and change how we perform them. Luckily, we have a band, you know, as a hip hop group. That's something that a lot of people can't do. And if I have a band, I might as well try to switch it up every once in a while, you know, make it interesting.
And I think also the reality is, like, for us is like, you know, right now the music, it's still gold is not a full-time job in and of itself for any of us as as one entity, you know. And so for us, it's also like, you know, Mo's got 2 kids, a business, I have a business, John's like the hardest working drummer in the city, and Chris works all day over at Google chefing up the meanest food ever. So it's like we all have our lives that we have to juggle. So quite realistically, it's almost impossible for us to be able to focus on all of it at the same time and do it all very well.
I'm glad you brought up the idea of day jobs.
Yeah.
And that's something where we see a lot of people struggle, who have a great idea, and the idea of setting aside that time for it is something that's challenging. Mm-hmm. You have other obligations, you have other things that require your energy. What is the greatest wisdom you can impart to somebody who's struggling with that?
Just do what you love. That would be the biggest thing I could say. Find a way to do it, you know? Because at least every day you're sort of doing something to your own purpose, you know what I mean? I think that's the biggest thing. Like, we all have bills we have to pay, we all have all that stuff, so, I mean, that's just a given. And obviously, the goal and dream is that the things we love to do are the things that also cover all the things we have to deal with, you know? But even if they don't, in the meantime, find a way to do what you love.
Yeah, very, very rarely has an artist, a musician, an actor, a painter, anyone just came out being a star. It's so rare that that happens, you know? So most people who are starting out as actors and actresses and stuff, they have to work, even when sometimes they're on television, you know? And then there's like painters, artists who struggle all the time, you know? And you know, at the end of the day, though, they're doing what they love, you know? And I think that that's something that, I mean, there's a lot of people in the world that haven't found that thing that they love, that thing to release energy, tension, or whatever, you know, and we found the thing that we love to do, you know. So that's in and of itself, that's worth it right there, you know.
John says something also all the time that I think is really true, where you know, it's like, this thing is fun for us. This is at the end of the day, this is like, you know, we all have our goals, and you know, we're trying to make things move and grow and all that. But like at the end of the day, we started doing this thing because it was fun, and it's still fun. And the moment it's not fun is the moment we sort of take a step back and make another decision. You know what I mean? I think that's important. It's like, you know, it goes hand in hand with doing something you love. It's like, try to stay having fun with it, you know.
Yeah, and like the sad part is that everyone's out there trying to make it seem like it's so effortless, and that this is so easy, like, you know, and that they're just people are just out there bawling, and they're not working, and they're not doing it, and it's just a falsehood. It's just you're painting something that's not true, you know. So.
But Mo, this idea of people who haven't discovered what they love yet. What about the people who they really know what they love and what they want to do, but they're afraid to admit it? They're afraid to really give it life because they're afraid maybe it's not what they're supposed to want. What would you say to them?
I mean, it's tough because life has a way of deciding things for us in certain ways, and then you also have fear. You know, fear is a big thing as well. So at the end of the day, I would say if you want something, if you love something, you gotta go for it, you know, no matter what. Like, you know, and that's what I've done. You know, I've watched, I mean, on a personal level, I mean, I've watched my family work jobs that are very tough jobs for 30, 40 years. And they never got any satisfaction out of those jobs. They met great people throughout the years, but they never got a satisfaction out of what they were doing. They just left their schooling and went on to their jobs, and they were stuck, and that was it. you know, and then they retire, you know, and then they wonder where 30, 40 years went, you know. I know where my time has gone, you know, and I know what experiences I've had in life because of it. I don't regret any of it, you know. So it's like if I don't like become this like rich, famous like thing, that's not really what it is. It's the experience and the life experience. I've traveled the world, you know, I've met great people that are like family to me now, you know, and I've created in things that I'm very proud of, you know, so you know, that's something I would want to instill in my kids and my family, and you know.
What are some of the best ways each of you has discovered to overcome some of those fears? Because I think that word fear, when you said that, I think that just encapsulates what gets in people's way so much. How have you learned to overcome some of your fears?
I think it's like it's like anything. It's like you have to sort of practice at it. It gets easier the more you do it. I don't know. I think that, you know, you gotta just sort of put your neck out on the line a few times and realize that, like, even if it fails, it doesn't like destroy you. Especially when it comes to, like, you know, art and expression, because that's like where we get so vulnerable. It's like you know, we are like, feels like we are more exposed in art than we are, you know, in anything else. So I feel like, you know, you gotta just kind of go out there and just see, and you know, and 9 times out of 10, even if like you think you failed and it was the experience was this just got off, you know, then what tends to happen is someone comes up to you and says, "Man, you don't know what that meant to me," and then you're like, just flips it right around, you know, and that happens enough. You do it enough, and you, like I said, you practice at it, and like the idea, like I mean, a great example is when I first met Moe. And we started talking about, we started making some music, you know. At the time, I had really I used to perform in bands all the time, and I had really stepped back from performing. I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm a studio producer. And Mo was like, you know, you're not going to be a studio producer, like, in this group, right? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, we'll see, you know, like, I'm not so sure about all that. And he was like, yeah, you're going to play guitar. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm definitely not doing that, because I wasn't even playing guitar a whole lot at that point. And he just kind of harped on me, and it eventually got to a place where it was like, all right, this dude's just not going to let go of this. So I had to just, like, the only way I was going to get him to shut up was to try it. And
it worked.
It worked.
So not taking no for an answer.
That's a lot of it, yeah. I mean, like, unfortunately, I had someone who did that. You know, sometimes you have to be your own person to do that, which is really tough. Because clearly in that situation, I wouldn't have been that person. But yeah, and like here we are 4 or 5 years later, and it's worked very well for us, you know. And so now the idea of playing guitar on something is like second nature to me at this point. Like, that fear is so far gone. And now when we come up with new ideas, you know, I might have that little moment of like, and then I'm like, whatever, we'll figure it out, you know, because we practiced at it.
For me, it's just like, you know, like, everyone has the ability to be great, and everyone has the ability to be like horrible, you know, all the same. People make mistakes all the time. People try things and they fail all the time. You know, it's just doing it. It's okay to fail. It's okay to stumble a little bit, in my opinion, because everyone does, and everyone wants to act as if they don't, or act as if, you know, it's just like I said, that it's so easy, you know, but it's, you know, it's just not true. You know, we all need the chance to fail and to try new things, I think, you know.
And that doesn't stop. That goes for us too, still. You know what I mean? Like, you know, we're always trying to do new things, and we know we might fail at them. But it's more interesting to try and fail than to just do the same thing over and over and over and over again.
Word. You know, when you said the word vulnerable, and you said that the work that you do especially requires vulnerability, one of the first things that came to my mind was Torch Song. And I know that you have the new album, but I do really want to ask you about Torch Song, because just to insert my own thoughts on it, I think it's one of the most important albums to come out, at least in my lifetime. So I really want to talk about.
Thank you. That's amazing. Thank you.
Of course, I mean it. I mean it, and it does kind of, at least as a listener, it does. It's very raw, you know, and it does stir up things that you didn't know you could feel sometimes. So as a listener, I can only imagine what it was like to write it and to produce it. Can you tell me a little bit about that process, how it came to be, and what it was like to actually do the work in real time?
Well, we had decided on making a synth 80s rock album, like a real fun, happy-go-lucky like record. That's what we were settled on, what we were gonna do.
Gold 2, that track was the first of the direction of what the whole album was going to be.
Yeah, and it's very
Lovely
upbeat
and
and it's happy and it's like, and then you start to see what's unfolding in the world a little bit, and after a while, it's hard to not think about those things when you're writing or you're creating or talking to family or, you know, at work or whatever. So I personally felt like I needed to say something, and without even talking about it, really, the beat started to change. Like it started getting a little bit more moodier and a little bit more raw, and the lyrics were changing. And after a certain point, it was, I think we were probably about 6 songs in, and Mark is like, so we're making a very different record, like, you know. And it was just really cool how it all came about. And, you know, at the end of the day, it was just things that I needed to say and things that I feel like people needed to hear, you know. I haven't really left that lane at the moment, just because I feel like the world is really tough right now. It's just really tough. So, you know, I'm hoping I can make that 80s synth rock record soon, you know. You know, but right now it's not the time.
I think the word, or the term real time was really what it was. You know, we had this concept going in of making a record that was like, let's set up and make this idea, and real time is what changed the record. Was like, you know, everything that was happening at the time that we were writing the record was just too much to kind of like just put in a box somewhere and work on this happy thing, and and like that just didn't like. Was like the escapist route wasn't something we could do. It just didn't feel right, and so I think the real time thing was really what played into the record. It was like, you know, for us making it, everything about making that record was happening in real time. It was like, you know, stories were coming out both in the news and in personal lives that were making their way onto records the same day. You know, there was no sort of like delay in it was direct response, you know, to everything. So, yeah, it was kind of like, honestly, it was sort of like it was kind of a processing. It was how we were processing all that stuff. It was like internalizing it and spitting it out. And so it just kind of like, yeah, I think that was really what, you know, it was how we were kind of getting through it all. Yeah. We happened to record it and put it on an album.
Yeah.
The interludes, to me, are some of the most powerful tracks on Torch Song. And when you say that these, you know, the real-time aspect, things that were happening in the world and in your own lives, those, you can tell me what they really were, but they just sound like real-life conversations that fit into the narrative of the album. So can you tell me a little bit about capturing those?
Yeah, I went around to some of my family and friends and spoke to them about how they feel like the world is. I mean, for me and for much of, you know, people of color in the world, we're seeing things unfold daily about how we've always said that there's an underlying thing happening to us, but there was no proof, and now people are seeing it. It's 2 men walk into a Starbucks. kids playing in a pool and getting kicked out, men getting shot without any weapons. Just many different things of how somehow we're seen as something other than human, and basically just had a conversation, and I just had my phone and we talked, and those were just little segments of the conversation. Also, parallel was to all of this happening is my cousin was coming home from being in prison and coming back into society. So, trying to get him back on his feet and him seeing how the world is now, and him trying to gain his freedom back after dealing with something that he had done, watching that whole thing happen, and then he's also seeing how the world is now, 20 years later, from when he went in, he was a kid, so yeah, it was just a very trying time, and I don't think that has stopped. It's just been kind of like a constant wave of shock, like that's been going on, so yeah.
Throughout history, a lot of the way whatever has been happening in culture at a given time, a given century, a given year, that's been captured through art and through music. And that's why I said that, to me, Torch Song is one of the most important albums that's going to come out in my lifetime. So you said you had something to say, and the people who you interviewed had something to say. So thank you to all of you for saying those things and to capturing this really interesting point in history.
Absolutely.
For everybody else and for future generations to come. But you have a new album.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about that.
The new normal. That's what we're living in. So this is, I like Moe said, it's not a whole lot has changed. So we find ourselves in strikingly similar situations. And so this record was in much the same way, built out of sort of a real-time reaction to everything that's going on. And everything that's going on has gotten pretty crazy. So, at this point, it's just kind of like, you don't even know what's going to pop up on your phone as a new headline. It's like, it's just like, there's getting so, like, I'm screenshotting some of them now because you're just like, what? So it's gotten to a point of like absolute chaos. So I don't know, I think this album is trying to kind of, I don't know, it's not so much searching for the answer as it is saying, okay, well, we just got to learn to live with it. And
yeah, I think that's what Torch Song was like, this kind of like, where are we going? Like, like what's going on to, well, this is what it is, and that's kind of, and how are we dealing with it while we're realizing that this is kind of what it is. Like, everyone's like, we're no longer shocked anymore. We were shocked 2 years ago. We're no longer shocked now. It's just it's an exciting record. I think we definitely hit on some topics that I think need to be heard again, but we've done it in a creative fashion, so.
And you are going to perform one of two title tracks for us today. Tell me a little bit about that.
New Normal is the title, and on the album there's New Normal Part 1 and Part 2, and we're going to do Part 1 tonight. They're sort of, the two songs, Part 1 and Part 2, kind of act almost as, I don't know, sort of positive and negative, like, energies of the same thing. They're sort of different, like, temperaments of the same exact feeling in a way, and they more or less bookend the album to sort of keep it all concise and as a feeling and a story for the project. So the track we're going to perform is early on in the record and kind of sets the tone, I think, for the record overall. So probably let the song speak for itself. Since
Great.